The results speak for themselves. The very people that we need to lift up are in the absolute worst schools. You can come at me with this equity, DEI baloney. If the second you aren't trapping poor kids in failing schools, come at me with the DEI stuff, all right? Until then, I don't want to hear it.
Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
State Representative Blaine Wilhauer there talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion when it comes to public schools and the impact to Illinois education dollars from the federal government if indeed President Donald Trump's order to close the Department of Education is left to stand and be implemented. Welcome back. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Wake up with us each and every weekday morning here as we break things down for you and how they impact you, the taxpayer. So if you go to thecentersquare.com, you'll be able to see the headline here. Illinois' $3 billion education funds could be jeopardized by the state's diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. So what we have is that executive order from President Donald Trump. And we reviewed this last week, but I think it's important that we go through it again here as, the headline is Improving Education Outcomes by Empowering Parents, some states and communities. Talks about how they want to make sure that they shore up efficiencies within the Department of Education, go on and start closing that. Ultimately, they said the money is going to be kept whole for special education and a variety of other funding elements that states get, Pell Grants for individuals and such. But one thing here that I think is important that we highlight, consistent with the Department of Education's authorities, the Secretary of Education shall ensure that the allocation of any federal Department of Education funds is subject to rigorous compliance with federal law and administrative policy, including the requirements that any program or activity receiving federal assistance terminate illegal discrimination obscured under the label diversity, equity, and inclusion or similar terms and programs promoting gender ideology. So again, the Trump administration and President Donald Trump with his order says that diversity, equity, and inclusion obscure illegal discrimination, meaning kind of covers it up. And we'll hear some reaction to all of this now. So let's go to the State House, where yesterday I was able to get in front of Democratic State Representative Will Davis, who chairs a House Education Committee, asking him, how's this going to impact the state of Illinois? Even though Trump says the dollars for special education, which even Governor J.B. Pritzker has complained could be jeopardized under Trump's order, all those dollars are still going to be going out, except for this issue in the clause about if you're running DEI programs and gender ideology, then you might not get any of those federal funds. How's that going to impact Illinois? Here's Will Davis.
Well, one thing that we love about the state of Illinois is that we recognize the diversity that exists in the state at all levels and in every space in the state of Illinois. And the fact that the federal government hates diversity and are trying to bully states like Illinois to say if you're going to do diversity, then you jeopardize funding. To me, that's, in my opinion, and I'm no lawyer, it's unconstitutional to say that. The concern about even keeping certain programs intact, if there's no DOE that has the history and the capacity to administer, and you push it off to an agency that has never done it before, then can we expect problems? Can we expect a lot of hiccups in the administration of it? And those hiccups translate into services not reaching young people, particularly deserving young people here in the state of Illinois. It is our hope and our desire that somebody with some sense in D.C. will say, no, let's not do that. Let's keep these things together. And I know that funding-wise, about 10% of a school district's funding comes from the state, from the federal government, but those are important programs, particularly when we talk about title programs, those programs that serve underserved individuals. Clearly, the federal government has disdain for people who may otherwise not have the same level of resources that other folks have, and we don't understand why. I think government's role is to help protect particularly the least of them. And that's what programs like that do. So we're going to obviously fight to do the best we can to make sure that our children continue to be served, regardless of who they are and where they are in the state of Illinois. And we'll continue to work hard to do that.
Again, State Representative Will Davis there. Sorry, I had to unmute my mic. And he's talking about how he thinks that DEI is important and it's just fostering diversity. And he alleges that
when you think about programs
the Trump
like that,
administration doesn't appreciate diversity. But the Trump administration's made the argument that focusing on the external characteristics of somebody is in itself prejudice and discriminatory. Because if you're just focusing on the color of somebody's skin or the identity they self-identify as, you're not looking at the outcome of their actions and the merit that's involved when making decisions of whether somebody's going to get a raise or whether somebody's going to get promoted or something to that effect. So diversity, equity, and inclusion under fire, obviously, and the Trump administration trying to get rid of that. I talked with State Representative Blaine Wilhauer yesterday as well to get his reaction on how he believes Illinois is going to be impacted by Trump's order to close the Department of Education.
Well, yeah, they'll certainly be impacted. Illinois needs to make a choice. J.B. Prichard needs to make his choice. Are we wanting to educate kids in this state, or are we wanting to indoctrinate kids in this state? Because that's all this DEI stuff is, all right? It's a race to the bottom. It's, that's 100% what it is. Our students are failing in this state. Only 3 out of every 10 kids are reading at grade level. We've got 30 schools in the state of Illinois where 0 people are proficient in reading and math. It's time for Illinois government to make a choice. Do we want all this DEI woke nonsense that's destroying education, or do we want our kids to actually learn? The Department of Education has been around since Jimmy Carter. All right, we spent $1 trillion on the Department of Education, and our grades have got worse. Our results have got worse. Our students have gotten progressively worse since we've done this. So, anytime that we can eliminate the bureaucracy, our enrollment's going down, but the bureaucracy has taken off. Non-teaching positions have absolutely taken off in the country and in Illinois. Anytime we can return those dollars closer to home, I would like to get rid of the Illinois State Board of Education and certainly limit their control. They're not doing a very good job either. You know what I think? I want to give that money to parents. Parents are the best source of local control in education. They know what's best for their kids.
And that could be a move across the country with Trump's order, because when you're looking at like a state for Illinois, for example, you've got over $3 billion that's expected to come from federal taxpayers to the state of Illinois. About 10% of the funds that Illinois spends on public education comes from federal taxpayers. So we get that money. We then have, multiple layers of bureaucracy as well. And, the State Board of Education takes the money and then delivers it to all these different programs across the state. But what if that money instead went to the parents to make a choice, right? I mean, they're already paying property taxes. And even if they send their kids to a private school, they still got to pay the property taxes to send their kids to public school, or at least send those tax dollars to public school. But would allowing for the money to follow the child through the parents' decision on how they spend that on their education, is that a better approach? Representative Wilhauer believes it is. But back to Representative Davis, when I asked him about the DEI issue, and in particular Trump saying that it's illegal discrimination and that's why it must end, Will Davis saw it differently.
When you think about programs like that, you have to understand that not everybody's on the same playing field. Programs like this are to help bring the bottom up so that they have the same opportunity to live a quality life as everybody else. If nobody understands that, Trump should understand that. Apparently, he's lived a charmed life. He's never had to worry or to struggle like some people have. And the fact that he can't understand that and be sensitive enough to acknowledge that we have to do more for those who don't have, then, that says a lot about him being supposedly the leader of the United States.
So Davis says that DEI is actually about, lifting people up who traditionally or historically haven't had those supports. And we've heard a lot about DEI, especially in the education space. Between the two I'm talking with right now, State Representative Will Davis and State Representative Blaine Wilhauer in the House Education Committee. They've debated excellence versus equity. I asked State Representative Blaine Wilhauer to react to Will Davis, saying that DEI is really about making sure that those of lesser means can rise above. Here's what Wilhauer said.
The results speak for themselves. The very people that we need to lift up are in the absolute worst schools. You can come at me with this equity, DEI baloney. If the second you aren't trapping poor kids in failing schools, come at me with the DEI stuff. All right. Until then, I don't want to hear it.
So again, Representative Wilhour not wanting to have that conversation because he says it's on a faulty premise because we've had DEI in place for some time and really hasn't helped the outcomes of children performing better in public schools, especially in certain areas, like, for instance, areas of lesser means, and there's a lot of money going into those areas. So this conversation is definitely going to continue, and how the Trump administration continues to impact a state like Illinois that seems to be defiant against the president's orders to end things like DEI and gender ideology. We'll be tracking this story for you, so that's why you got to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell with us each and every weekday morning as we wake you up with a little bit of news jockeying. It is the Center Square, Illinois in Focus Daily. I'm Greg Bishop. Get the headlines at thecentersquare.com.